All right, it is a great zchus Baruch Hashem to be able to take advantage of the opportunity that everyone has, a little bit of time off from work. I think the only two people who are not off from work today are Rabbi Gross and myself. But Baruch Hashem, it is so nice to see everyone taking advantage of the time to be able to learn together, to be able to be together. First, I want to begin with a very special thank you to Saeed Haken. Where is Saeed? He's still in the kitchen. Okay, so Saeed really, again, every single time we do something in the shul and there's a special breakfast, a special shir, Saeed always goes out and makes sure that it's top shelf and beautiful and meaningful and delicious. So when you see him, make sure to be able to go ahead and make sure to give him a special, tremendous yasher koach. Also, the shir and the breakfast today is sponsored by The Breakfast. The breakfast is two sponsors today, an anonymous sponsor in gratitude for Rav Kalman Akiva Kovacs and his ongoing commitment to Mishnah Yomi, Shkoyach, and thank you, and as well as by Adam David Edelman in honor of the first birthday of his grandson Shalom Aryeh ben Moshe Yehuda. Where's a picture? Got it. You can see pictures after the shir, if you would like. This shir, this series is also part of our ongoing commitment. We as a shir and as a shul have dedicated the entirety of Maseches Baba Kama Le'ilui Nishmas Master Sergeant Elio Michal Charush Hashem Yikom Damo, who was one of the first casualties, one of the first police officers who died al Kiddush Hashem in the firefight in Sderot. That was a battle in which his heroic efforts were able to save literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people. In a trip that we made to Eretz Yisrael with the OU, Jeremy Lassen, who's not here today, we actually met his almana at the site of what was now the demolished police station in Sderot. An incredible gibora in her own right. And now an almana with young children who has a husband who died literally again al kedushas ha'am v'ha'aretz. So we've dedicated the entirety of Maseches Baba Kama Le'ilui Nishmaso, and how incredible and how important it is, the power of our Torah, the power of our tefillah. Sometimes we feel that since we're 6,000 miles away, we feel so powerless in our ability to do something for our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael. And there is no shortage of the things that we can do, both begashmius uberuchnius. And the idea that Baruch Hashem, the Rabbi Gross, you should know so much of the chaver that's here today, are guys who are here in shul, Baruch Hashem, every single morning at 5:45 in the morning. Every single morning at 5:45. Some of you should be here at 5:45 every single morning at 5:45. Some of you come in about 6:15 in the morning, but you still get credit for coming in the morning, Baruch Hashem. But there's such mesiras nefesh with Torah, and that mesiras nefesh is not only something that is a zchus for us and for our families and for our community, but it serves as a zchus for all of Klal Yisrael. So we should hope that Emeretz Hashem, and the merit of our Talmud Torah, that Emeretz Hashem, our precious soldiers, should have incredible hatzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yadehem. They should be zoch Emeretz Hashem to be the tip of the sword in the war against the greatest evil that this world currently knows. They should have incredible hatzlacha, come back to their families b'shalom and b'karov. Kadosh Baruch Hu should return all of the hostages to their families b'shalom and b'karov. And halavai, we should be zocha that Emeretz Hashem Klal Yisrael should have not just a week, but going forward in eternity of besoros tovos. And halavai, we should be zocha to the Geula b'hirab yameinu. Amen. My pleasure to ask Rabbi Gross to share with us some words of Torah. You want to stand?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Just put this on you. I think. Oops. Yes, you could just. I don't know.
Other
keep
one
in your pocket.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rabbi Silber. I want to be Paseach B'chvad Achsania and thank Rabbi Silber and Suburban Orthodox for hosting the shir, allowing me to come in to speak and learning with the Olam. So really, I'm here to speak. Feel free to interrupt and ask and clarify anything that needs to be clarified. I also a special hakaras hatov, a special debt of gratitude to Suburban for because in a sense they're really responsible for our shul, for Kehillas Derech Chaim. And the reason is when our shul was founded, I wanted to name the shul after my wife's grandfather, Yisrael Chaim Peiser. And I was looking for a name that would somehow encompass Yisrael and Chaim. I tried Yisrael, maybe Ner Yisrael, and that was taken, so I couldn't use that. Ar Yisrael was too close. Arches Chaim, there was a Ar Chaim shul. I wanted to stay away from other shuls, and I was having a hard time. And a friend of mine suggested, why don't you call it Taras Chaim? It's a beautiful name, Tara and Chaim. And I said, I'm pretty sure there's some shul here in town that has that name. I was new to the scene, I didn't know, and we all know it's called Suburban. I said, I think there's a shul with that name. I wasn't sure, so sure enough, I looked up the website of Suburban, and it's called Suburban Orthodox Taras Chaim. So that was nixed, and because of that, we ended up with Derech Chaim. So Taras Chaim is really responsible for Derech Chaim, and so I thank you for that. But I just want to focus for a minute on the name Taras Chaim. It's a beautiful name. Taras Chaim really has a double meaning. Taras Chaim means that the Torah teaches us how to live. It teaches us our Chaim, but it also means that Taras Chaim is that Torah is our life. That's the purpose of the life of a Jew, is to be able to learn Torah. And when a Jew learns Torah, that's the highest level that he could reach. There's nothing more meaningful for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be able to be involved in limud Torah and learning. And Ashreichem, you should be grateful that you have a Rav who pushes you to learn. He pushes you to be limud Torah. He teaches you Torah. That's really the most important thing that a person could do. And you should continue to see the success of your shul being a shul of Taras Chaim in both meanings of the word. Before we get to the actual sugya of bar, Rabbi Silver mentioned, our learning Torah is a schus for Achenu B'nai Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. I think that it's true with all Torah that we do, but in a sense, specifically, learning about bar has a special meaning, a special schus to Bez Hashem, bring the gula and the binyan of Yerushalayim. There's a very interesting thing you find in the end of Parshas Matos. It talks about the cities in Eivai Yarden. There's a whole bunch of cities on the other side of the Jordan River, which were given to Reuven and Gad and Chatzi Shevet Menashe. And there's a list of cities. The very last city which is listed is a city called Sivma, Sin Beis Mem Hey. That's the name of the city. And this city being the last city in the list over there, the Mekubalim write that this city has within it it's the epitome of evil. All the Kehillas of Ra, all the evil of the world is centered in the city of Sivma. The Gra writes this, or Mami Pano. It's the city that includes within it all the Klippas, all the Ra. And the Gra says that's why the letters Sivma, Sin Beis Mem Hey, stand for to Rashi Tevis of the first mission of Baba Kama, Shar, Bar, Mava, and Hever. That's Sivma. And these are Ba'avas Nezikin, and not just physical Nezikin, but these represent the four Kehillas of Ra, the Kehillas of evil that we have in the world. Are these Mazikin? The Gra explains, one is Esav, one is Ishmael, and they're all centered in the city of Sivma. So Sivma is the center of Ra. Its foil, the opposite is the city of Kedusha, which is Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is the city of Kedusha, where you have the opposite of Nezikin. You have the Kehillas of Kedusha, all the powers of Kedusha. So the Gra says a fascinating thing. He says if you look in the very last pasuk in Yechezkel, the pasuk says, it's talking about what will be Las Lava when Mashiach comes. It says that, this is in Perek Memches, pasuk Lamed Hey, Saviv Shmeina Asar Aleph, V'Shem Meir Miyayim Hashem Shama. It says that when Hashem will bring down a Shechina, when the Shechina will come back to Yerushalayim, the name of the city from that day on will change. It will no longer be called Yerushalayim. That's how some Mefarshim learn it. Would be called Shama. Shama is the letter Shin Mem Hey. That's going to be the new name of Yerushalayim. And the Gra explains that Shama is really that same name of Sivma, Shin Beis Mem Hey, just minus the Beis. The Beis is missing, and it turns into Shama. And he says that the bar, the mazaga bar, that's the epitome of evil. That's the highest level of evil that there is. And when the beis is taken away, when you take away the bar from Sivma, it turns into Shama. Then it will become a city of Kedusha, it will become a Makom Kadesh, and that's how Sivma turns into Shama. Now, I don't know if bar being a deep tunnel has something to do with current events, but somehow when we learn the sugyas of bar, when we learn about bar, when we bring Kedusha into things that are underground, Bez Hashem, that will help us to be Mekadesh, what's underground, and turn the Sivma into Shama, which should culminate with the Binyan Yerushalayim, B'meheri Yameinu. Okay, so the Gemara that I want to focus on is on Daf Nun Aleph and Baba Kama. The Mishnah starts off, Bar Shel Shnei Shutfim. You have a bar of two partners. So two partners, two people own a bar. And what the Mishnah basically says is that when two people own a bar, and one of them is using the bar, and then he leaves it open, but before he leaves it, his friend, the other partner, comes along, and he starts using the bar. So and then somebody falls into the bar, a behema, a kalim, something falls into the bar. So the halach is that the second person is chayav and not the rishon. The first person is pater, he does not have to pay, because he could say, even though I left the bar open, but my shut of my partner was here, I figured he'll cover it up when he's finished. And therefore, it's not my obligation to pay; it's his obligation, and that's the halacha. The second one is chayiv and not the rishon. That's the din of the Mishnah. Now, the Gemara over here goes into a somewhat technical question, And that is, the Gemara has a difficult time understanding, how do you have a bar shel shnei shuftim? How is it possible to have a bar which belongs to two people? How could two people be partners in a bar? And the Gemara says that Hanicha is Svilam Rabbi Kiva. If you hold like Rabbi Kiva holds that this a machlekes comes up again and again. The bar b'shusa chayav. The chiyuv of bar is a bar b'shusa. If you have a bar, you have a pit in your backyard, you own it. So you're chayav. That's the bar that the Torah is talking about. So if a bar is something that could be owned, it's a bar in your personal property in your backyard, then we could have a very simple case. Mishkachas la b'chatzah shel shneim. It could be you have a yard, a chatzah that belongs to two people. They're both partners in this chatzar, ubar shel shneim, and the bar belongs to both of them. V'ifkiru rishus and v'lo hifkiru barin, and then they're mafke the rishus. They give up ownership of the rishus. Now they open it up to the public, but the bar they still own. So that way you have a simple case how two people could have dual ownership in a bar. They actually own the property where the bar is. So that's a simple case if you hold that a bar in your own property is something that you're chayiv on. But Eli Svirlan bar b'shusay pater. But if we hold like the other man damar, that a bar in your private property is pater, that's not the bar that the Torah is talking about. When you chayiv for a bar b'shusay rabbim has to be public property in the public domain in the middle of the street. So then heichim mishkachas, how could you possibly have a bar that's owned by two people? When a bar is in the middle of the street, in the middle of b'shusay rabbim, nobody owns it. You can't own b'shusay rabbim. You can't privately own b'shusay rabbim. So why you chayiv for a bar b'shusay rabbim? Because you dug it. You're the one responsible because you created the bar. So one person could dig a bar and create it and be chayiv, be responsible for the bar. But two people, how could two people together dig a bar? Right? It doesn't make sense. You're both holding the shovel every time you're digging it. You're holding it together. That's not a reasonable case. So how is it possible that two people could own a bar together in Rishus Rabbim? So the Gemara says maybe there's a simple solution. Maybe you could say that they made a shliach. They made a messenger, they made an agent, and they told this guy, Reuven and Shimon tell Levi, you take the shovel, you dig the bar on our behalf. So when Levi digs the bar, every shovel that he digs is really working both for Reuven and Shimon. And at the same time, it becomes the bar of both Reuven and Shimon. So that would be a simple case how you can have a bar that's owned by two people. But the Gemara says you can't say that because ein shiach et va'aver. We have a klal, a famous rule, comes up a lot in Shas, that ein shiach et va'aver. You can't send a shliach, you can't make an agent to do an avera for you, and if you do that, then it doesn't work. He can't be your shliach to do an avera. For example, if the Gemara says in Kiddushin, if Reuven sends Shimon to Chalila kill Levi, to go murder Levi, right? So Shimon kills Levi. So who is chayiv? Who's gonna get punished for that? Not Reuven. It's going to be Shimon. Shimon could say, "Well, it's not my fault. Reuven sent me to do it." That doesn't work. You can't become a shliach for an avera. The avera belongs to the shliach, the one who did it, not to the mishalech, not the one who sent him. So there's no halach of shlichus when it comes to an avera. So if Reuven and Shimon sent Levi to dig a bar, shlichus would not apply. It's Levi's bar, not Reuven's bar, and not Shimon's bar. So that cannot be the case that we're talking about. So then the Gemara ends up saying basically that one of them dug the bar, and then the last tefach, the last couple inches of the bar, they both dug together, they held the shovel together, and that's how you have a bar of two shufim, of two partners. So that's the basic explanation of the Gemara. So I just want to focus on this nekuda, this idea that the Gemara says, the question of the Gemara, when the Gemara says you can't say that they made a shliach, we can't be talking about whether they made a agent to dig the bar, because ein shliach et va'aver, you can't make a shliach to do an aver for you. So I just want to try to understand this because I have a big problem over here in the Gemara, something I don't understand, and that's I want to speak about what is the application of this klal, this halach of ein shliach et va'aver to our sugya over here to bar. And just to give a little bit of an introduction about the concept of ein shliach et va'aver, so the Gemara in Bamitzia and Daf Yud discusses this idea, and I'm just going to use the example of the Gemara, similar example to the Gemara. The Gemara says that let's say you have a Kayan who wants to marry a Grusha. Kayan wants to marry a divorced woman. So we know a Kayan is not allowed to marry a Grusha. He's not allowed to marry somebody who's divorced. But if he did marry her, the Kiddushin is chal. It's a good Kiddushin. It's only a lav. It's not krisis. So he didn't lavera. You're not allowed to be married to a Grusha. But if he did do it, the marriage is a marriage. And the Kiddushin are intact. So the Gemara says, what happens if a Kayan tells his friend, I want you to go ahead and be my shliach, be my agent, to be mekadosh a grusha for me. So I'm assuming that there's an aver involved in doing the kiddushin. That's not so simple. But for this, sake of simplicity, let's assume there's an aver in doing the kiddushin. So what happens when a kain tells another kain to go make kiddushin, do kiddushin to a grusha? So the Gemara says we say ein shliach et va'avera. There's no shliach to do an avera, and therefore the Kain is not going to get the Avera. The Kain who sent the other Kain, he's not going to get the Avera of being Mekadosh Grusha because Shlichus does not work to give you the Avera of the Kiddushin. That's the basic rule of Ein Shlichut V'Avera. So that's clear, that everyone agrees, and when you send someone to do an Avera for you, the Avera goes to him and not to me. You send someone to, the Gemara says, to be Baal and Erva, to be involved in Gila Rayas. It's his Avera, it's not my Avera. The one who did the Avera gets the Avera, not the one who sent him. That everyone agrees to. Now the question is, though, that's concerning the Avera. What about the Shlichus itself? What about the act that I wanted him to do? What about the Kiddushin? Is the Kiddushin intact or not? Is there a Kiddushin here or is there not a Kiddushin? So in this example of a Kayan sending his friend to be Mekadosh Grusha, so the sender is not going to get the Avera, but is he actually married to this woman or not? Is the Kiddushin a good Kiddushin or is it not a good Kiddushin? Do we say that when there's an Avera involved in the Shlichus, the Kiddushin is batal, there's no Kiddushin here at all, you can't create an action through an Avera? Or do we say that the Kiddushin is good Kiddushin? Maybe I am married to this woman, even though an Avera was done, the Avera will not go to me, I don't get the Avera, but the Kiddushin will be intact, the Kiddushin will be a good Kiddushin. So that question is a Machlokes Rishonim, and over here in Baba Metzia, who are the Rishonim who argue about this? They don't really have names. It's known in the yeshivas as the Machlokes between the first teretz and the second teretz of Taisus and Baba Metzia. It's two teretz. The Taisus over here on the bottom. It has two terutzim. The first teretz seems to hold that the Kiddushin would be intact. The Kiddushin are a good Kiddushin. The second teretz holds that Kiddushin would not be a good Kiddushin. So in other words, when you make a shich to do something, everyone agrees that you're not going to get the Avera, but is the action they're trying to accomplish, is that going to be intact or not? That's a machlokes between these two terutzim in Taisus and Baba Metzia. And just to give an example, something more practical that we're familiar with, where you see where this machlokes has enough kamina, halach l'maisa. So a couple years ago, we had the year of Shemitah. And during Shemitah, so we know that the fruits of Eretz Yisrael have a certain kedusha, they have a certain sanctity, and you have to treat them accordingly. And so we know that there's a famous heter mechira of the Rabbanut. The Rabbanut has a mechira that they do to circumvent the kedusha of Shemitah. They sell all of Eretz Yisrael, they sell all the land to a guy, and by doing that, now the Paris, the fruits don't have kedusha because it belongs to a guy, it doesn't belong to a Jew. Now this heter mechira, as we all know, is very controversial. There's been debates back and forth about this for many, many years already. And I just want to touch upon one of the nekudas, one of the halachic issues that come up that really has to do with this taisus we're talking about over here. So this issue the Chazon Ish brought up, the Chazon Ish said that you want to sell the land to a guy, and assuming you really mean it, it's a real sale, it has to really belong to him. So if you do that, you're being over on a lav of lo sechanim. There's a lav in the Torah that says lo sechanim. You can't give. The Gemara of Adazar says lo sitin lem chaniya bekarka. You're not allowed to sell land in Eretz Yisrael to a guy. It's a special lav, besides for giving a gift, but to actually give chaniya bekarka, to allow a guy to own land in Eretz Yisrael, is a lav, is an avera. So the Chazon Ish said, how could you sell all of Eretz Yisrael to a guy? You're allowing a guy to live in Eretz Yisrael. That's an avera of lo sechanim. So now, if you're a farmer in Eretz Yisrael, you have a field, you're a farmer, you could say, well, okay, I didn't do this avera. Someone in the government went and he sold all of the land to this guy. He did an avera, that's his problem. It's not my problem, so my field is sold. So what's the problem? Why doesn't that take away the kedusha of Shemitah? So the problem is, the Chazon Ish says, well, how could this government agent sell your field for you? It's not his field, it's your field. How does he sell for you? He sells it for you because through the concept of shlichus. He's your shliach. You made him a shliach. He's your agent to sell your field, and when he sells it on your behalf, it's sold for you. So if he did an avera in the sale, then we say ein shlichut v'avera. Now the shlichus is batal. There's no shlichus. There's no sale, and your field is yours. It was never sold. That's the problem that the Chazon Ish brings up. But that problem is only a problem if you hold like the second teretz of Taisus Baba Metzia, that when an avera is involved in the shlichus is batal. There's no shlichus. There's no sale, and now my field isn't sold. But if you understand like the first teretz of Taisus over here, that when an avera is involved in the shlichus, all that means is that guy who sold Eretz Yisrael will get the avera, not me, because I didn't sell it, but the mechira is intact. The mechira is still a good mechira. Then there's no problem. So the government agent who sold the land, he has an avera of lo sechanim. That doesn't affect me because ein shlichut v'avera. My field is sold, and now the mechira would be a good mechira. So that's where you see in a very practical sense that this has a nafkamina l'halacha today, whether we say the shlichus is batal or not. So that's just to bring out the idea over here. So now let's get back.
Correct, because by the case of Cohen and Grusha,
Right.
the Torah says that there's an assuming that Kedushin is Chal. How do you know that you're allowed to even sell your own land to the guy who never sold?
I mean, how do you know that even if you sell it would be
Right.
chal? Right. Okay. What you're asking gets into the sugya of Avila Mahani in the Gemara in Tamura. When you do an aver, you do a lav, any lav, do we say that it works or it doesn't work? And that the Gemara ends up saying pretty much that it would work. So that's a fact. When you sell your own karka to a guy, it is a good sale. You're not allowed to do it, but the mechir would be chal. But when you have a shliach, that's where you get into this issue that perhaps it wouldn't be chal because it would nullify the shlichus, which would mean that there is no mechira.
Is the government allowed to sell your own private land? If you own it privately, you're not asking for the government to sell it.
Right, I think you have to sign on. I assume you would have to, right, unless the government really, it could be the government owns all the land. I think there was a change between, before, when the Turks owned the land, it was different. When the Heter Mechir began, there was a different relationship between, individual landowner and the government, different than there is today. So that could be part of the issue as well. So that, I assume if you give permission, it would be okay, but I don't want this to turn into a Shemitah shir, that's for a couple of years, Mitzvah Shem, we'll do that. That's just an example. But bringing it back to our sugya, so this is the problem that's bothering me. So the Gemara says that you can't have two people make a shliach, make an agent to sell your field for you because you can't make a shliach to do an aver for you. Now what's the aver over here? What aver are we talking about? Rashi over here does not explain what the aver is, but Rashi on Daf Nun Gimel, which is, I think that's today's daf, Rashi says what the aver is. Rashi on Daf Nun Gimel, Dibra Maskal Nafal, he says that the aver is, he says, Ein shliach v'aver to asur lekalkel reshus harabim. You're not allowed to ruin reshus harabim. So what's the aver? The aver is that reshus harabim is public property. You can't just go into the middle of the street and start digging and making holes. You're ruining public property. That's an avera. It seems to be only an avera derabanan, but you're not allowed to do that. You can't ruin public property. That's the avera which is involved, and therefore we say ein shliach v'avera. So my problem is like this: if you hold like the second teretz of Taisim B'Metzia, then when you make a shliach to do an avera, there's no shlichus, everything is batal, nothing happens, there's no kiddushin. So when you send a shliach to dig this bar for you, he did an avera, he ruined the reshus harabim. He's not my shliach, and therefore it's not my bar. So the Gemara has a good point. You can't make a shliach to dig a pit, and now it's not my pit, it's his pit, not my pit. But if you hold like the first teretz of Taisim B'Metzia, if you hold that when you make a shliach to do an avera, all it means is that he gets the avera, not me. But the shlichus itself is intact. The kiddushin is good kiddushin. The mechira is a good mechira. So then, whatever he did is kayim. It's intact. So I'm the bala bar. I'm the one who dug the bar. I might not get the avera of ruining reshus harabim, but why can't the bar be mine? Why is this a problem of ein shliach v'avera if we hold that the action that was done is intact? It's not batal. It doesn't get ruined by the avera that was involved in the shlichus. So why can't we say that you sent a shliach to dig a bar? He gets the avera. Yeah, it's true. There's an avera. I won't get the avera, but I'm the bala bar. Both me, Reuven, and Shimon, we own the bar, and therefore we have to pay any damage that happened to the bar. That's what's bothering me over here. According to the first stanza of Taisim B'Metzia, what exactly is this application of ein shliach v'avera to a pit? Okay, so that's the question I want to deal with today. So the first thing I was thinking is that if we can go all the way back to the beginning of the Masechta, Daf Beis Amud Aleph, we have the first Mishnah over here. So Rishonim have an interesting discussion that we have a klal all over called Ein Einshim Min Adin. Ein Einshim Min Adin means that if you want to give a punishment to someone, you want to. I'm talking about the Gemara. The Gemara wants to decide that somebody deserves malchus or misa, some type of punishment for doing an avera. You can't learn that out from a kal v'chaimer. You can't use a kal v'chaimer. You can't use a mamatzinu. An einish has to come from a pasuk. It has to be a explicit pasuk. It could be maybe a drasha, but not a kal v'chaimer or a mamatzinu. That's what we refer to as a din. Ein einshim min adin. So the question is, that's true when it comes to regular punishments, malchus, misa, and the like. But what about mammon? What if you want to learn out from a kal v'chaimer that somebody's obligated to pay money for damages that he did or something like that? Could you be einish mammon min adin or not? Could you give a punishment of mammon based on a kal v'chaimer? So this is a machlekes rishonim over here in the beginning of the Masechta, and Taisus on the bottom of Daf Beis Amud Aleph, the three Taisus from the bottom, he says, if you look in the Mishnah, the first Mishnah of the Masechta, it's pretty clear that you could use a kal v'chaimer to give a punishment of money, of mammon, because the whole Mishnah is based on this back and forth of lo harei ashar karei abar, lo harei abar karei amave, that basically what the Mishnah is saying is that if the Torah only wrote one of the mazikin, the Torah only wrote shar, could I learn out bar from shar based on a mamatzin or a kal v'chaimer? And the Mishnah says you can't because each one has a chumrah or a kula. Each one has different attributes that the other one doesn't have, and therefore you can't learn one mazik from the other mazik. You can't learn one out from the other one. But if not for those issues, you would be able to learn out shar from bar, bar from mava, and so on. So Taisa says, you see clearly from the Mishnah that you could be einish mammon min adin. You could use a kal v'chaimer to give a punishment of mammon. And what's the reasoning behind that? So I think it makes a lot of sense that mammon, to pay for your damage, that's not a punishment. I'm not being punished and I have to pay for the damage that I did, or my animal. That's a reimbursement. You broke his thing, you broke your neighbor's window, you got to pay for it. That's not a punishment, it's mammon, and therefore you could do it min adin. The other svara would be that at the end of the day, we're making you do something to shell out your hard-earned cash. That's a punishment, and therefore that would go into a min adin. But Taisa says, from our mission, it's pretty clear that you could give in punishment of mammon based on a kal v'chaimer. The problem is, Taisa brings a mechilta. The mechilta says, it has to do with our sugya of your bar. When it comes to a bar, the pasuk says, the pasuk in Mishmatim, it says, ki yiftach ishbar v'chi yichra ishbar. If a person opens up a bar, or if you dig a bar, you're going to be chayav, you're obligated to pay. Now, opening up a bar means that the bar is already dug. It had a cover, and just uncovered the bar. Yichra ishbar means that you actually dug the bar. So the Mechilta asks the obvious question. It says, if you tell me you're chayav, I'm obligated to pay for the damages of the bar for just merely opening up the cover on top of a bar, obviously I'm going to be chayav for actually digging the bar. I did so much more than just opening it up. So why does the Torah have to tell me that I'm chayav not only for uncovering a bar, but I'm also chayav for digging the bar? Right? It would seem that you could figure that out. So kal v'chaimer, if I'm chayav for opening it, of course I'm chayav for digging it. And the Mechilta says, a fascinating thing, Mechilta says, the Torah wrote this to teach you, l'lamdecha she'ein einshin mammon min adin. The Torah wrote this to teach you that you can't rely on a kal v'chaimer when it comes to mammon. When it comes to paying damages, mammonis, you can't rely on a kal v'chaimer. So it's true, you could have figured it out. Misvar, you could have made a kal v'chaimer and say, if I'm chayav for opening it, for sure I'm chayav for digging it. But the Torah B'dafka went out of its way to write that you can't dig a bar, to teach me that don't rely on a kal v'chaimer. When it comes to mammon, you cannot rely on a kal v'chaimer. So Taisa says, from here we see clearly that ein einish mammon min adin. So we have our Mishnah saying that you could be einish mammon min adin. Then we have the this Mechilta saying ein einish mammon min adin. So it seems to be a contradiction. So Taisa says, Upshat, not going to go into that now, but I want to focus on the Rashba. The Rashba over there on Daf Beis and Beis, he says a interesting teretz to answer this question, and he says basically like this. He says that there's a difference between bar and the other mazikin. He says that a regular mazikin, all the mazikin in the Torah, all the other avos in the Mishnah, you could use a kal v'chaimer to learn that they're chayav to pay. When it comes to bar is unique. And he says a bar is a chiddush. Bar is really something which is not, logically, we would not think that you have to pay for the damages of a bar. And he gives three reasons. He says, number one, it's different than the other mazikin. All the other mazikin are things that travel, they go. They're going towards the nizik. Your shar walks to the nizik, your eish. These are things that are going towards him, and therefore it makes sense. You have to pay for what you did. A bar doesn't move, it stays in its place, and you came to it. So that's a much lower level of mazik. Number two, the Rashba says you don't even own the bar. The bar is b'shus harabim, it's not really yours. So the Torah says, it made it yours, but it's not really yours, so, it's difficult to hear that you would have to pay for something which is not even yours, it's not your mammon. And the third thing he says is that not only does the nizik come towards the bar, but it actually goes in the bar. It's like the nizik went into your house, he went into your bar, and I should have to pay for him being damaged by entering my house. Why should I have to pay for that? So for that reason, the Rashba says that bar is a chiddush, bar is something that is not we would not think logically that you would have to pay for a bar. And when it comes to bar, ein einish min adin, but when it comes to other dinim mammonis, you could be einish mammon min adin. Now, what does the Rashba mean? I'm just going to add a little bit of a hezber that Reb Shach says in the Aviyazir. He explains that what the Rashba is saying like this: that there's a fundamental chiluk between the other avos nezikin, shar and shein and regel and all those mazikin and bar. He says the regular mazikin, when you pay for the hezek that you did, it's not a punishment; it's just a reimbursement. You caused the damage, your animal caused the damage. You have to reimburse the damage you have to reimburse the nizik for what you did. That's not a punishment, and therefore you could use a kal v'chaimer to learn out such a mazik. When it comes to bar is unique. A bar is something where misvara, logically, we would think you do not have to pay. Why does the Torah say you have to pay for a bar? It's not reimbursing him for the damages that you caused, but it's an einish. It's just a punishment. You created a mazik. When you create something that has potential to be mazik, you have to pay for that, and for that reason, it's an einish. And dafka by bar we say an einish min adin because it's more of an element of punishment than by the other three. Yeah.
But there are cases of bar that you do own. If you leave like your sack of potatoes and it's around and someone trips over it, are you back to show bar?
You're saying in cases where you're allowed to do it. Is that what you mean?
You're not allowed to do it.
I mean, when you own it, that's your. Yeah. Okay. So it's a good point. The second reason that he says that you don't own it would seemingly only apply to certain cases when it's a bar b'shus harabim. You have a bar in your rishus that would not apply, but you still have the other two reasons, right?
According to Yehuda, you always have to own the bar anyway. So it's moment. It's your moment. It shouldn't be any different than.
Right. So you're right. The second reason which he says over here does not apply across the board. Not in all cases. I think he's just throwing it in that according to the mandamer that you're chayiv only b'shus harabim, or in cases when that would be your chiyav, there's a added chiddush because you don't own it. But the first two cases would apply in all cases. The first two reasons would apply in all cases.
And comparing the case of bar to kedushin or shmita,
Right.
it's not fully comparable because at the end of the day, with shmita or kedushin, there's nothing tangible. The bar, it's always tangible. If the act was done, there's no debating if the act was done.
Okay, very, very good. Okay, that's a beautiful svar. We'll get there, Mitzvah Shem. So, okay, you're saying a good teretz, and Mitzvah Shem, if we have time, we'll get there soon. So I just want to start with the Rashba. But the Rashba is saying over here, or based on the Rashba, I think you could answer the question like this: that when the Torah says you're chayiv for a bar, it's not reimbursing the money that you damaged, but it's a punishment. It's a punishment for an avera. You created a mazik. The Torah says now you got to be punished and you have to pay for what you cost. So if it's a punishment for an avera, then I think that would answer our question. If we say ein shlichut v'avera and I did not get the avera was not done through me, meaning I didn't do the avera of creating this mazik. The shliach did it. So then, if something happens in the bar, how could I be punished for an avera that I didn't do? Is it? I mean, it's similar to a knas. It's hard to say it's exactly a knas because might have a knas and those type of things would not apply. A knas means more than you damaged. This will equal what you damage. It's a punishment which is fashioned according to the damages you did. So I wouldn't say it's exactly a knas, but it's an einish that reflects the hezek that you did. So assuming it's an einish, if you say en shechet v'avera and I don't have the avera, so of course I'm not chayiv to pay. So I think that would be a simple answer to the question how you apply ein shlichut v'avera over here, even according to the first test of Taisus Matzia that holds that the shlichus would be intact. Now the problem is that's not going to work in Rashi, right? Because Rashi understands that Rashi says, what is the avera over here? The avera is ruining rishus harabim. You're ruining public property, which is not even avera d'oraisa, it's an avera d'Rabbanan. According to Rashi, you can't say that the reason why you pay for a bar is because it's a punishment for the avera that you did. One has nothing to do with the other. Ruining rishus harabim, that's your civic duty to not ruin rishus harabim, and paying for the bar is the damage that you did to this guy. It's clearly not a punishment for the avera. It's two separate things. So according to Rashi, this teretz I think is not going to work. You can't say that the payment for the bar is a punishment for the avera. According to Rashi, it's just reimbursing him for what you did. So I think according to Rashi, the question remains, why is ein shechet v'avera going to be a problem over here if the shichas is kayim, the shichas is intact, I don't get the avera, but why can't I be the baal habar? And so I think according to Rashi, we're going to have to say that Rashi would hold like the second teretz of Taisus Matzia. Rashi will hold that the shlichus is not kayim, the shlichus is not intact, you don't have the maisa, you're not the baal habar, and for that reason, it would work out lefi Rashi as well. So basically, saying two different options over here, two different possibilities to answer this question. If you hold that the shlichus is not batal, the shlichus is kayim, then we have to say the bar is an einish, bar is a punishment, and if you don't have the avera, you're not going to get the punishment, and that's why en shechet v'avera will take away the shlichus. If you hold like Rashi that the avera has nothing to do with the chi of a bar, I think you would have to say that he holds like the second teretz of Taisus Matzia that the shlichus is not kayim, there's no shlichus over here, you're not the baal habar, and for that reason, the Gemara says that ein shechet v'avera would be an issue over here. So that's, I think, two ways of answering this kasha, and I think it works out nicely, Rashi l'shitasai, because if you think about it, why is it? What is the reason behind this machlekes? We mentioned machlekes Rishonim, these two terutzim. Is the shlichus batal or not? Is the shlichus intact or is it not intact when avera is involved? What is this dependent on, this machlekes? So the Chaim explain that this has to do with another machlekes Rishonim, how to understand the what's the reason why in shliach v'avera? Why is it that there's no shliach to do an avera? Why can't you send a shliach to do an avera for you? And this seems to be a machlekes rishonim. Some rishonim in kiddushin say that the reason is it's a gzeres hakasav. We learn out from a pasuk that if there's an avera involved in the shlichus, then the shlichus doesn't work. We learn out from psukim. Shnei ksum b'ayim ka'achad. That's in the sugya in kiddushin. Other rishonim learned that it's a svara. It's a svara which is mentioned in the Gemara in kiddushin of divrei Rav, divrei Talmud, divrei Mishaymin, which means very simply that whenever you make a shliach, the mishaleach, the one who's making the shliach, has to have gemiras das. You have to be confident that the shliach is gonna be your shliach and do what you want. If you never really believe that he's going to do it, then he's not your shliach. Then it doesn't work. You have to have gemiras das. You have to mean what you're doing. So the Gemara is saying that when you send a shliach to do an avera, you're telling him, I want you to go ahead and kill Levi. So you want him to do what you want, and you're hoping he'll do what you want, but you also know that there's somebody else telling him not to do it. Hashem is telling him not to do it. So there's a clash between what the sender wants, and what Hashem wants. So the Gemara says, "Aklal divrei Rav, divrei Talmud, divrei Mishayim." If you have a clash between the words of the Rabbi and the words of the Talmud, who do you listen to? If your Rabbi tells you do this, and then your Rabbi's Talmud tells you do differently, of course you listen to the Rabbi. So if Hashem is telling you don't do it because it's an avera, and I'm telling you do it because I want you to do it, so I know you're not going to listen to me, you're going to listen to Hashem, and therefore I never really thought that you're going to be my shliach, and for that reason there's no shlichus over here. So the Acharonim explained that if the reason is, Lefi those Yishanim, the divrei Rav, divrei Talmud, the svar is the reason why you can't make a shliach to do an avera, then it would follow that there's no shlichus here at all. You can't say that I am a shliach, I just don't get the avera. No, if I didn't have in mind, I was not confident that you're going to do it, that means I never really meant that you should be my shliach. There is no shlichus, there's no kiddushin, there's no mechira, there's nothing at all. But if you understand that it's gzeres hakasav, then you could split it. Then you could say maybe the Torah only meant that I won't get the avera, but the shlichus itself maybe will be intact. And so according to that, we could say that the mechira is kaim, the shlichus is here, but it's just the avera that I'm not going to get. So according to what I'm saying, Rashi would have to hold that the shlichus is batal, like the second teretz and Tais B'Metzia. That would mean that Rashi understands that the reason why in shlichut v'avera is because of the svar of divrei Rav, divrei Talmud, divrei Mishaymin, not because of the pasuk. So if you look in Rashi over here in the Gemara, the first Rashi on this, when Rashi did B'Maskal in shlichut v'avera, so Rashi says, what does that mean? L'schayv sholchay el shliach mechayav v'svarahu. Says Rashi, it's a svara. D'aminalei divrei Rav, divrei Talmud, divrei Mishaymin. It's a svara that you listen to the Rabbi, not to the Talmud, and therefore in shlichut v'avera. So I think it's clear in Rashi. Rashi is going like those Rishonim that it's a svara. If it's a svara, it would mean that there's no shlichus here at all, and for that reason, Rashi works out nicely l'shitasa because Rashi really has to learn that way. You can't learn like the Rashba that bar is an einish, and if I don't get the avera, I'm not going to be chayv on the bar because Rashi holds the avera as being mekalkel rishus harabim. Rashi has to learn that there's no shlichus at all. The shlichus is batal, which would make sense based on the svar of divrei Rav, divrei Talmud, divrei Mishayim. Okay, so that's to answer up bar. Now the problem is, and how much more time do I have? Okay, we have all day. Okay. So. The problem is that this question is not really limited to this Gemara of Bar. This is really a question on all mazikin. There's a Mishnah later on in Daf Nun Tes. The Mishnah says that a hashalechas be'ira biad cher shayta. Basically, you send a messenger with a torch to go burn down your neighbor's field. So the Gemara says if the messenger, the shliach, is a pikeach, he's a bardas, he's an adult. Who is chayiv to pay? Meaning, I told Reuven, tell Shimon, take this torch and go burn down Levi's field. So who has to pay? So the Mishnah says that Shimon pays, the one who burned it down, not Reuven. So the Gemara in Kiddushin asks, why not? Why doesn't Reuven have to pay? He's the one who sent him. So the Gemara says, Ein shliach v'avera. You can't have a shliach to do an avera for you. The same exact thing as our Gemara says over here. Now over there we're not talking about bar. We're talking about a regular mazik. We're talking about the regular mazik of eish. And nevertheless, the Gemara says that when I send a shliach to burn something down for me, the shliach is chayiv and not me. So now I'm going to ask my question again when it comes to Eish. We have the same problem. If you hold there's no shlichus, the shlichus is batal. So it makes a lot of sense. He burned it down, there's no shlichus, there's not my action, it's his action, so therefore I'm patur from paying. But lefi the first teretz of Tais B'Metzia, that the shlichus is kaim, the shlichus is intact. It's just that I don't get the avera, but that means that I'm the one who burned it down, not the shliach. So why am I not chayiv to pay for the actions of my shliach I have to reimburse him for what he did, for the damages that he did. So when it came to bar, we had a teretz, we brought the Rashba. Bar is different, bar is a punishment. It's a punishment for an avera, and therefore, if I don't get the avera, I don't have to pay. But when it comes to Eish, right, the Rashba himself says, other mazikim are not a punishment. Other mazikim, we are anshimam min adin. It's, I'm just reimbursing you for the damages that I did. It's not a punishment for my crime. So then, why, because I don't get the avera, why would that mean that I don't have to pay if the shichus is intact, according to the first teretz of Taisus and Bam Metzia? So I'm really asking the same question now in Eish, and our teretz we said by bar would seemingly not work over here. So I was thinking of maybe saying a similar idea over here, and this is based on something that Rav Gusman says in the Sefer, the Kunshas Shurim. Rabbi Saul Gusman was a famous Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. He learned in Grodno, Talmud of Reb Shimon Shkop, and a very big Talmud Chacham, a big guy. And he was actually famous for when he gave shir in his yeshiva. Normally a shir takes around an hour, more or less. His shir went on for hours and hours, 3-4 hours. He wouldn't stop, and people would come and go, and he just kept on going. So, you're lucky you only have to hear me for half an hour, but he would go for hours and hours. And he has a sefer, Kunshas Shurim, where his shurim are written down, and it's pages and pages and pages. He has a lot of pages on this idea. I'm gonna say it in 10 seconds, but just one story about Rav Gusman. Rav Gusman, his yeshiva is called Netzach Yisrael. It was in Rechavia. The building is still there today. I think there's a shul there now, a minyan. And somebody once saw him outside his yeshiva. He was watering the plants outside the yeshiva. And the person said to him, Rosh Yeshiva, you don't have to bother to do it yourself. I can help you. And Rav Gusman insisted. He said, no, I want to do it myself. I want to water the plants. And he asked him why. And he told him the following story. He said that Rav Gusman was very close to Reb Chaim Ozer. And before the war, this is in the 30s, he was once speaking to Reb Chaim Ozer in Vilna, and they were going for a walk. They were going for a walk in one of the parks in Vilna. And they were talking and learning, discussing a sugya, and then in the middle, Reb Chaim Ozer interrupted him, and he said, you see these plants over here? Those plants are poisonous, you should never eat them. And Rav Gusman didn't know why he's telling him this, and they kept on walking. He pointed to another plant. He said, this plant is edible. You pick the flowers and you cook them, and then you could eat them. And the whole time he's talking about these different plants. And Rav Gusman really had no idea what Reb Chaim Ozer was talking about. Why is he discussing the plants of Vilna? And then fast forward a couple of years. It was during World War II and the Holocaust. Rav Gusman was caught by the Nazis and he was able to escape. He escaped from the Nazis. He ran to the woods. And he joined some partisans, very fascinating stories that happened, not for now. And while he was there in the woods, they didn't have any food, they didn't have what to eat. And suddenly Rav Gusman sees these flowers, and he remembered him. Chaim Ozer told him these are edible, and he picked them, he cooked them, he shared them with everyone. With other flowers, he said you can't eat. And they survived based on the advice of Reb Chaim Ozer, his foresight, his Ruach HaKodesh. That's how he was able to survive in the woods. And he told his Talmud, he said, I have a karsatayv to the plants. They saved my life, and I make sure to water them to show my karsatayv. That's where Rav Gusman was. So anyways, to make a long story short, Rav Gusman brings the Taisus in Ksubis and elsewhere where Taisus says that if not for the Torah telling us that you're chayiv to pay for damages, any damages, I would think that you don't have to pay for damages. Shar, bar, mave, hever, everything. It's a chiddush, it's exeres hakasav, and if not for that, you would not have to pay. And basically, Rav Gusman says that you see from Taisus that all of Nizikin is considered an einish. It's all considered a punishment. It's not just reimbursing the Nizik for what he did, but it's a punishment for creating a mazik. When you create a mazik, it's a punishment, and that's why you have to pay for the damages for creating a mazik. Now, what's the svar behind that? What's the logic? It's difficult to understand. We would think that you damage, you have to pay. So he goes into it a little bit over there. The way the Torah deals with mammonis, with monetary damages, is very different than it works in our society. And it seems to be that when you steal, you have somebody's money in your possession, you have to give it back to him. That's something that we all understand. But when you damage him, I don't have his money, I didn't benefit from his money, I caused the damage, and the fact that I have to pay is a punishment. We view it as a punishment, not as just a natural reimbursement. So according to that understanding, it would seem that all Nizikin are considered a punishment, and therefore the teretz I said before, I think would apply to everything, that when Nizikin is a punishment for the avera of damaging, and if I don't get the avera because ein sheichut v'avera, I don't have to pay as well, there's no punishment, and that's why the klal of ein sheichut v'avera would apply to all Nizikin, even to Eish, not just to bar. Now, that would work out in all the other Rishonim. The Rashba clearly can't say that. The Rashba clearly told us that bar is a punishment, other Mazikin are not a punishment. So in the Rashba, we're going to I think, be forced to say that he holds like the second teretz of Taisus B'Metzia, that there's no shlichus at all. It's batal, there is no shlichus, so the whole kasha doesn't begin. But if you hold like the Rishonim, if you hold that the shlichus is Chaim, there's a shlichus over here, then I think you would have to say that Taisus holds like this, Taisus and Ksubis, according to Rav Gusman, that all of Nizikin is a punishment, and therefore once you don't get the Aver, you don't get the punishment, and that way we have a teretz to the kasha according to everyone. Now, I just want to I'll end off with this. I think a last svara over here, a different way of answering all these kashas, where I think it doesn't have to be a punishment, bar, mazik, you don't have to say the shlichus is batal. I think there's a more fundamental, more simple teretz over here that would answer everything, which is really what you were saying before. And let me just bring it out a little clearer, that when we talk about shlichus, we talk about making a shliach. There's really two types of shlichus, two ways you can make a shliach. You could make a shliach to do an action which, without the parsha of shlichus, without the concept of shlichus, the action would not work. It would be meaningless. So, for example, we mentioned before, a Ruvain makes a shliach to divorce his wife. So that works. But if not for the chiddush of the Torah of shlichus, if not that the Torah said that there's a concept called a shliach, when a stranger goes and gives a get to Reuven's wife, that's meaningless. Nothing happened. Who is he to divorce? The husband has to divorce, not a stranger. So the concept of shlichus, it allows the action to be an action. It empowers it. It enables it. Without shlichus, there would be no action here at all. That's one example, one extreme. The other extreme is you have an action that would be an action without the shlichus. So Reuven sends Shimon to kill Levi. So even if he would not be a shliach, if he kills Levi is dead. He's not around. All the shlichus does, you don't need the shlichus to make the killing into a killing. You need the shlichus to direct the action to who you want to direct it to. You want to say that, shlichus will say that Shimon didn't kill Levi, Reuven did. Or because it's an aver, we won't say that. So shlichus is not enabling an action, it's just directing who is responsible for that action. Or take a more cheerful example. If, let's say, your friend is getting married out of town, you can't make it to the chasana, so you call up another friend in that city and you say, could you be my shliach, you be my agent to go dance with the chassan, right? So when he goes and he dances with the chassan, even if he would not be a shliach, he could still dance with the chassan, he can make him happy. He doesn't need to be a shliach to dance with the chassan. What the shlichus does is, it says that his act of dancing now will be my act of dancing, and it's as if I did it. So the shlichus is not enabling the act, it's just directing it to the right address. That's the second type of shlichus. So when we say ein shlichut va'avera, the question is, which one of these two types of shlichus is it addressing? Is it saying that the first type of shlichus doesn't work, or the second type of shlichus, or perhaps both? So to make a long story short, the Nesivos explains that, at least according to the first teretz in Taisus and B'Metzia, that ein shlichut va'aver just means when you make a shliach and you want to direct his action to me, you want to say that his aver is my aver, you want to say that what he did is as if I did it, that can happen when there's an aver involved. You can't direct his action to become my action when there's an aver. But the first part, the shliach which is necessary to create some type of halachic reality, that is going to be true even if an aver is done. We don't take away the action, we just take away, we're not able to direct it from him to you. So therefore, if a kain tells his friend, Pi Mekadosh is grusha, so he got the avera, I don't get the avera. The avera is not directed to me, but the kiddushin itself, being that without shlichus there would be no kiddushin, so that part of the shlichus is intact. So now, bringing it back to bar, when it comes to bar, if you think about it, so there's an avera involved in the shlichus. So what does that mean? Avera being involved says that I can't direct his action to me. I sent him to dig the bar. I can't say that when he dug the bar, it's as if I dug the bar, because you can't use shlichus of an avera to direct his action to me. You could say that whatever happened, whatever you need the shlichus for it to happen, will be intact. But that would apply to Kiddushin, and that's not going to apply to a bar, because exactly like you're saying, a bar is not a halachic reality, it's not a chalais. There's no halachic reality that needs to be done to dig a bar. Digging a bar just means you need to take a shovel and dig. It's a physical reality, and the physical reality does not require shlichus, doesn't require anything. Anyone can dig a bar, and it's a bar. So what you want the shlichus to do is not to make the bar into a bar. You want it to say that bar that he dug is as if I dug. That's directing an action. To direct an action cannot be done with an avera. That's what it means in shlichut v'avera, even according to the first teretz. So when you have a halachic reality like by kiddushin, that could remain intact even though the avera belongs to him and not to me. But when there's no halachic reality and there's just a physical reality of digging a bar, and the avera can't come to me, and the digging can't be directed to me because an avera can't direct his shlichus to me. So what are you left with? You're left with him digging the bar. I sent him, but it's not my bar. I'm not responsible. I have nothing to do with it. And for that reason, I think the svara of ein shlichut v'avera would apply to everyone. So that would be a third svara why ein shlichut v'avera would work out over here. And again, as I said, Mitzvah Hashem, through the schus of our learning about bar, we should be zeicha to see the bin in Yerushalayim in Amen.